of that is correct and some of that is false. Some of that, when it's dealing with about him, correct. His background, correct. And the other part's false. Historical revisionist wrote this article in the Encyclopedia in this book, and you can clearly see it.
Wilhelm with his father, in Scots costume. In 1862 a traumatic breech birth left him with a withered left arm due to Ehlers palsy, making his left arm about 6 inches, 15 centimeters, shorter than his right arm, which he tried with some success to conceal. In many photos he carries a pair of white gloves in his left hand to make the arm seem longer, holds his left hand with his right, or has his crippled arm on the hilt of a sword or holding a cane to give the effect of a useful limb posed at a dignified angle. Historians have suggested that this disability affected his emotional development. 3.
True, he had a shorter arm and limb. To say that it led to his messed him up growing up is false.
Early years. Wilhelm, from 6 years of age, was tutored and heavily influenced by the 39-year-old teacher Georg Hans-Peter. 4. As a teenager he was educated at Kassel at the Friedrichs Gymnasium and the University of Bonn, where he became a member of Corps Borussia Bonn. Wilhelm possessed a quick intelligence, but unfortunately this was often overshadowed by a cantankerous temper. Prussian royalty, House of Hohenzollern.
And of course that is true. He had a cantankerous temper.
Wapenduches Reich, Reichsadler 1889.svg. Wilhelm II. Children: Crown Prince Wilhelm, Prince Eitel Friedrich, Prince Adalbert, Prince August Wilhelm, Prince Oscar, Prince Joachim, Victoria Louise, Duchess of Brunswick. As a scion of the Royal House of Hohenzollern, Wilhelm was exposed from an early age to the military society of the Prussian aristocracy. This had a major impact on him and, in maturity, Wilhelm was seldom seen out of uniform. The hypermasculine military culture of Prussia in this period did much to frame his political ideals and personal relationships.
Now, that part is, of course, true, but as you see, then they go on and use the term hypermasculine, which is baloney. Nonsense. Military is good for people. Joining the military is good for people. It builds strength and character in them. Of course, at the same time, not everyone is meant or called to the military, and other people are. But to have some of that influence in our life is good in building character, especially for men and, of course, women of today. And he is, of course, a man of his time and strength in his time.
Crown Prince Frederick was viewed by his son with a deeply felt love and respect. His father's status as a hero of the wars of unification was largely responsible for the young Wilhelm's attitude, as in the circumstances in which he was raised. Close emotional contact between father and son was not encouraged. Later, as he came into contact with the Crown Prince's political opponents, Wilhelm came to adopt more ambivalent feelings toward his father, given the perceived influence of Wilhelm's mother over a figure who should have been possessed of masculine independence and strength. Wilhelm also idolized his grandfather, Wilhelm I, and he was instrumental in later attempts to foster a cult of the first German emperor as Wilhelm the Great. 5.
That part there is of course, truth and not true. Wilhelm II had a decent relationship with his father. And yes, he looked up to his grandfather. What child doesn't look up to, what boy doesn't look up to his grandfather? And yes, there probably was some tension between him and his father. And that not all, and of course, families and friends, there's no such thing as a perfect family, a perfect relationship with a father and son, a perfect relationship with one another. That is the fact of the reality. There's no such thing as perfect family relationships. There's no such thing as Leave It to Beaver family relationships. It's all false and false ideas in the world. Everyone has problems with their family. Everyone has tension, some worse than others, and some justified as well. Of course, the investigators behind this article probably saw that tension, but then they embellish it and make it worse than it really was.
In many ways, Wilhelm was a victim of his inheritance and of Otto von Bismarck's machinations. Both sides of his family had suffered from mental illness, and this may explain his emotional instability. When Wilhelm was in his early 20s, Bismarck tried to separate him from his parents, who opposed Bismarck and his policies, with some success. Bismarck planned to use the young prince as a weapon against his parents in order to retain his own political dominance. Wilhelm thus developed a dysfunctional relationship with his parents, but especially with his English mother. In an outburst in April 1889, Wilhelm angrily implied that an English doctor killed my father, and an English doctor crippled my arm, which is the fault of my mother, who allowed no German physicians to attend to herself or her immediate family. 6. Next to the throne, the German Emperor Wilhelm I died in Berlin on the 9th of March 1888, and Prince Wilhelm's father was proclaimed emperor as Frederick III. He was already suffering from an incurable throat cancer and spent all 99 days of his reign fighting the disease before dying. On 15 June of that same year, his 29-year-old son succeeded him as German Emperor and King of Prussia.
Dysfunctional family, true and not true. There's always dysfunction in family. Mental illness, probably, but not to the extreme that this writer communicates. And, of course, Wilhelm II, being young when he ascended to the throne, obviously, like any young person, was a hothead like all young people are in their early ages. But as time moved on, growing and experience matured. And of course, being a cantankerous person who lost his temper because he had some Scot and some Irish in him. Because there's no such thing as 100% English or United English or 100% this or 100% that. Everyone has a mixture of various influences in their lives. Yes, short-tempered, probably made a dogmatic statement like that under tension, frustration of the time, because the English doctors prevented him from seeing his father.
Although in his youth he had been a great admirer of Otto von Bismarck, Wilhelm's characteristic impatience soon brought him into conflict with the Iron Chancellor, the dominant figure in the foundation of his empire. The new emperor opposed Bismarck's careful foreign policy, preferring vigorous and rapid expansion to protect Germany's place in the sun. Furthermore, the young emperor had come to the throne with the determination that he was going to rule as well as reign, unlike his grandfather, who had largely been content to leave day-to-day administration to Bismarck. Early conflicts between Wilhelm II and his chancellor soon poisoned the relationship between the two men. Bismarck believed that Wilhelm was a lightweight who could be dominated, and he showed scant respect for Wilhelm's policies in the late 1880s. The final split between monarch and statesman occurred soon after an attempt by Bismarck to implement a far-reaching anti-socialist law in early 1890.